What's going on, y'all? This is Coach Mike D with another episode of Impact and Fulfillment. Yo, dig this. On this episode, I'm actually going to take you all back to a platform that I created a couple of years ago called Brothers Learning from Sisters. And in this conversation, you're going to hear from Dr. Katherine Sylvester. She's the creator or one of the creators of Operation M.I.S.T, which really works with women while they're pregnant and actually postpartum in monitoring services and just really doing some dynamic work. This conversation is actually the precursor to her developing this platform. So take a listen to our conversation and also click the link in the bio to check more about Operation M.I.S.T and Dr. Katherine Sylvester. Y'all have an amazing day, and y'all be blessed, well, and wise. Welcome to Impact and Fulfillment with Coach Mike D, where you'll gain practical wisdom and dynamic insight from amazing conversations to live your best life. This episode is going to really be off the chain because we have a powerful sister who's doing an amazing thing or doing amazing things in the realm of helping women postpartum, rediscover their music. And she'll dive into that a little bit. But the guest that I have today on episode 2 of Brothers Learning from Sisters is none other than Dr. Katherine Sylvester. She's a wife. She's a mom of 2. She has a doctorate in physical therapy, and she's making waves in the realm of physical therapy, but her mission and her passion as of late is surrounding this concept of rediscover your music, in which she's helping mothers after pregnancy rediscover their music, find themselves, and become comfortable with their new norm. And we're going to really dive into that, partly because, again, this is Brothers Learning from Sisters. So we need to get brothers to understand what women are dealing with postpartum, one, but then also this is a conversation in which women can kind of get a deeper understanding of some of the things that they may be dealing with that maybe they don't have any clarity on. And so we have an expert here to kind of talk about that. And then one more thing, she's doing this unique thing in the realm of scar manipulation. This thing blew my mind. And, ladies who have gone through like C-sections and all of that, she does this thing and she's learned it. I'm going to let her jump into that a little later because I'm not an expert. That's why we got the experts here. So all the folks listening, let's welcome Dr. Katherine Sylvester to episode 2 of Brothers Learning from Sisters.
Hey, Mike.
What's up, Katherine? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to see you.
I am happy to see you, and I'm even more happy to have you here joining us for this dynamic conversation.
I'm so honored. Tuning in on y'all's conversations with the men, and so it's really good to be able to be on here with you.
Awesome. And and it's interesting, after we launched this this series, actually I called your husband Keith, who's one of my best friends, and I said, Keith, I'm launching this thing called Brothers Learning from Sisters, and I want Katherine to be the second episode because, the conversations that we've had in regards to what you're doing and the impact that you're having in regards to mothers and women and helping folks to just find who they are, after having a baby. I was like, man, this thing needs to get out there to the world. So thank you for sharing with us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored.
Awesome. Well, before we jump into your story, your background, inspirations and all, let's give some shout outs because who are we without those individuals around us that allow us to be our best? So give some shout outs and then we'll jump into your story.
So, of course, my sweet husband that you already mentioned, he has always known that I had a passion for moms and has always encouraged me to follow that passion. And then he gave me my 2 babies. And so the experience that I have that I'm able to share is a lot of the reason that I have decided to learn about moms is because I had a child. And then it made me realize that there is so much that moms don't know. So I am grateful to him, of course. And then to my sister, my older sister specifically, I watched her have 4 kids and get right back into shape after each child. And I thought, there are so many people who are struggling with this. What is it that she's doing? And so just watching her, she used to tell me, we're the Washington sisters, we do not waddle. I remember her saying that because every woman toward the ends of their pregnancy are like, I just got to waddle now. No, we are the Washington sisters don't waddle. So let me say that.
I like that. The Washington sisters don't waddle. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and she doesn't. And just, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks ago, she went to the beach. She looked amazing in her bathing suit. And like I said, she had 4. So grateful. My little princess, my younger sister, she has a business, and I watched her grow that business in such a short period of time. And all she has done since then is be an inspiration to me. She's 5 years younger, but I watch her and I say, if she can make that kind of an impact, then I can too. And when she first started that business, it might have been about 6 months to a year ago, she hit the ground running. And I thought, if I'm as passionate about what I say I'm passionate about, then why am I not doing what she's doing too, right? And so I'm grateful for her. And of course, the rest of my family gives me support. And then I have a really good friend. His name is Arthur. And when I first told him about the program, he said, I know some people that you could help. And you know how sometimes you feel like because it's a friend, they're doing you a favor. No, he entrusted me with his mom and his wife. Wow. And I thought, I better start increasing my belief in what I'm doing as much as other people are looking from the outside and saying, you're doing something big. Why don't you move forward with it? And after working with his mom and his wife, it really helped me to see how much of a help I could be, but also that women would really entrust you with their bodies and their journey. And it's not an imposition if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're doing it with excellence. And so it's great. His belief in me, his family's belief in me, and ability to trust me. And so those are my first 2 clients, and I have not looked back ever since. So I'm always grateful to them. And then there's this amazing woman I met. Her name is Mamie, and I met her in a park, and she teaches an exercise class to women. And when I tell you, I've had more people come from her than from anybody else in my circle, and it's because she looked at her women and said, they have a need. If you're saying that this is happening, then we're going to talk about it. And when we talk about it and they divulge what is going on, I'm going to send them to you. That was maybe 5 years ago, and she has not stopped with the referrals. Just Tuesday, I saw a woman who she invited me to her home, Mamie did, to talk to some women around Valentine's Day about how pregnancy, delivery, some of the tears that moms have during that process impact sex, hormones, structural changes, emotional changes. And so I was in her home for maybe 2 hours talking to women about sex. And Tuesday, one of those women from 3 years ago reached out and said, I remember when you talked to us in that living room. I need your help. And so Mamie, she makes it so that women are comfortable talking to her. And then she gives them access to the resources that they need. And I just think if there were more people who did that, then women wouldn't be in the position that they're in. Because sometimes you'll talk to an OBGYN and they say, oh yeah, women talk to me about leaking all the time. I didn't think that there was anything to do about that. Or you talk to exercise instructors and they say they don't even ask, they'd rather not know. So they're exercising these women and not asking the hard questions or not giving a survey, because that's how I feel. Just have a box, have a survey so that every mom who walks in fills in these questions and answers these questions. Are you leaking? Are you having pain with intercourse? Are you having issues using the bathroom? Are you constipated? Just these, maybe 4 or 5 questions. And if the women submit that to a box, and then you give that box to a healthcare provider can go through, answer the questions, call the moms back if they left their contact information, and then they can get what they need. But there is no excuse for knowing that moms are dealing with this and not addressing it. And so what Mamie has done is decided, I'm not going to wait until they tell me. I'm going to go ahead and ask and make this a comfortable space and then put them in touch with the people that need them. And then Yolanda Waller, she has been in my group. And I'll tell you this, she is not a mom, but she takes care of her nephew. And because her sister passed away. And so she is like a mom to me. And she gets in the group that I created on Facebook. And she is always very supportive of the comments she shares with moms that she knows needs it. And here recently, she started an adult daycare center. And because she's not taking clients right now, she had told me that I could use her space for my scar business. And so she has been the biggest cheerleader. And I'm so grateful for women who, even though they're not mothers, they realize the struggle that mothers are going through and decide to be whatever help that they can be. And so I would say those are my shout outs. And of course, the amazing moms I've worked with for the last 6 years. Like, it is the biggest privilege to be entrusted with a mom's journey, with their innermost, I mean, the things that could embarrass them. They come out and they tell me, and they trust that I can get them to where they want to be. And so that's the biggest thing that I think. The women who have entrusted me with their journeys, I thank them too.
Katherine, one of the things that when I hear you talk, first off, I hear passion, one, but then I also hear a legit calling. Like, this is something that you were designed to do. Like, this is your ultimate mark on the world. Like, you were designed to be a mom so that you could go and help other moms, right? Like, it's just like, to me, the way that you express that. And what's interesting about it, God doesn't make any mistakes. Like, there's this thing that your gifts will make room for you, right? And so when I think about what you're doing now and the calling that you have on your life to impact the lives of mothers, but then I look back on it where you are also, prior to that, you started off as a physical therapist, right? And so it's interesting. I would assume, and this is just my assumption here, you didn't go into physical therapy because of Rediscover Your M.U.S.I.C, right? You went into physical therapy for another reason, but yet that opened up this gateway for Rediscover Your M.U.S.I.C and scar manipulation, helping women, with scars post C-section and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about the inspiration that led you into physical therapy, but then let's transition into what led to Rediscover Your M.U.S.I.C.
Okay, so when I was in the 8th grade, I cheerleaded. I cheerleaded from when I was 4 years old. But after the 8th grade, I was trying out for the varsity cheerleading squad in the 9th grade, so I had to go get a physical. Went to the doctor's office. He told me I was borderline overweight. Now, I don't know if you know how that feels to a girl who has cheered all of her life and been conscious of her body all of her life, but it felt horrible. And so I left that doctor's office, and he was going off of a height weight chart. So it was not the most valid way to
BMI, basically.
Right. And so I said, what can I do though to be better? And so I had to do a research project for an English class over the summer. And so I decided to do it on nutrition and fitness. And when I tell you, I changed the way that I was eating, because I did identify things in my diet that I should not have been eating, or things that I
in the 8th grade?
In the 8th grade,
wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And I decided to change up my fitness routine. And so I didn't lose weight, but I toned and I felt better. And in that moment, everything happens for a reason. I said, I want to be a part of a profession that focuses more on what you feel like than on what you look like, more on your life, right? Than on what other people perceive about you. And so I found physical therapy, and I never looked back. I started shadowing physical therapists, and I fell in love with the profession. And so that's how I started. And then the transition, though, is funny. I love neuro. So working with people who have brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, stroke. And so that was my passion for the first 5 years of my career. And then I got pregnant with Victor. And after I had him, for the first 12 weeks, I did everything that I do with moms now. I made sure that I got up and I walked around. I worked on the muscles that are inside my pelvis. I worked on my abdominal muscles just very gently for the first 6 weeks. I watched how I got into and out of the bed, how I got up and down from surfaces, into and out of the car, how I was lifting. So the whole first 6 weeks was about protection and early mobility, but everything was gentle. But after that 6 weeks, I got to where I was, upping my exercise and making sure that I was eating right. And, I was breastfeeding. And so I had to increase my caloric intake. So I was adjusting things as I went. And by 12 weeks, I felt amazing. I mean, I didn't want to go back to work because I still had a little bit extra time, right? But I felt like I could have gone back to work. But during that same time period, I had 4 other moms who were pregnant at the same time that I was. But at that same period of time, at the 12-week mark, they were dealing with postpartum depression. One had a hernia that went undetected. One was having horrible sex. When I say sex was horrible, it was painful. She didn't want to do it. She was dry. And then I had another mom, and she was dealing with just not being able to lose the weight. And so I said, I can help them. I thought that everyone was doing what I was doing, and I guess it was just out of ignorance on my part. But they didn't have access to the same information, to the same knowledge that I did. And so I took those 4 moms And for a year, I walked their journey with them and just tried to help them the best that I could. And I realized that it had to be individualized. None of them looked the same. They didn't present with the same issues, but the solutions, even for the issues that overlapped, was not the same. And so after that year of working with those 4 moms, I pulled into the library with my son and I thought, what have I been working on these moms with for the last year? And I wrote it down: muscle flexibility, urinary continence, so making sure they're not leaking, sexual fulfillment, internal confidence, and core stability. And I was like, I'm helping these moms rediscover their music. And that was—
Hold on, pause, hold up. It's funny. We've talked about this before, but I never knew music was an acronym.
Yes.
So rediscover your music. Give us the acronym again.
Is muscle flexibility,
Okay.
urinary continence, so making sure you're not leaking, sexual fulfillment, internal confidence, and core stability.
Wow. Rediscover your music. And that's what you had been doing this whole year with these 4 moms.
Right. And didn't even know it. And then the funny thing about take motherhood up an octave, because that's the tagline. My little sister and I were talking and she said, it's so neat that you're doing this in front of Victor, because then he'll know the importance of exercise and taking care of your body and, eating right and everything. And she said, I bet he's going to go around telling people, you see my mama, she took motherhood up an octave. And so that was the birth of that hashtag, or not hashtag, but the tagline. And I feel like that's what we're doing. People look at motherhood and they think that it's this downhill journey. So you don't get your body. You hear moms refer to their bodies as a postpartum body. I'm like, don't refer to it in shame. Make it better than it was before. And yeah, right. And understand that it doesn't have to be what other moms say it is, right? Or the things that we're not talking about. Go ahead.
No. I mean, that is so powerful, because a lot of times we look at averages, right? So even when you go to the doctor, they base your numbers on the general averages, right? But you might not be average. So that's why it's so important for you to understand who you are, for you to rediscover who you are, rediscover your music, because if you're basing it off of everyone else, the reality is there's a strong possibility you could be selling yourself short, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned the concept of not accepting the norms. I'm thinking about this from a guy's perspective. We think about dad bod, right? You have a kid and, your wife does her thing and we're getting to a certain age. We're supposed to have a dad bod. We're supposed to start looking different. And that's not what we're supposed to do. We can accept that if we want to, but the reality is we don't have to accept that.
That's right. Because I look at my husband, he's in better shape now than he was 10 years ago. Right. Right. And
that's
then
amazing.
You were on a basketball, maybe last year or the year before, balancing on a basketball. I'm like, it's because you've been intentional. It's all about intentionality. What are we doing every day to make our bodies better? The problem with moms is that they lack the knowledge of what to do every day to make their bodies better. Every mom that I've talked to, let's just start with posture. So if you see a mom, typically she's closed down like this. And you see when I do that, I don't look confident. I look horrible. So there's a TED Talk that talks about the power of posture. And, if you have that posture, then sometimes your confidence is impacted. But if you have this posture, then could it not positively impact your posture, your confidence, and the way you feel about yourself? But moms don't even recognize a lot of the times what they can do to improve that. But they say it. I noticed that my posture got worse after I had my baby. My shoulders started to get rounded and closed in. But if you think about the things that moms do on a daily basis, then you'd understand why. We're changing our baby. We're feeding our baby, whether it's breastfeeding or bottle feeding. Our posture is always closed. We're bathing them. Then we get on the computer and we're doing work from home now, right? And so everything is bringing us down and closed in. But if we would just every day do an exercise where we squeeze our shoulder blades together, or someone tells you to attend to your posture, and then your husband reminds you. So I try to get the husbands involved too, and say, if you see your wife slouching, let her know. Her crown shouldn't fall off her head. So if she's walking around like this all the time, that's not the way that she's supposed to look. So just gently remind her, just stand up straight, so they can help.
Yeah, and you mentioned husbands helping to remind or helping to be a part of the process. Again, this is brothers learning from sisters, and I'm here to learn from you. You're the expert in this particular realm. And I think when it comes to communication, sometimes that's an area of opportunity to improve upon in regards to our interactions with our wives. So how is it that we can best communicate, situations like that and not come off as if, we're, putting, because we don't want to put you down, you know what I'm saying? And we want to give constructive improvement, but we don't want it to come off as we're always criticizing or we're always, hey, put your head up, put your shoulders back, girl, get your shoulders back, put your shoulder blades together, get your head up. We don't, because first off, that's, you don't want to come off as that almost like a tyrant, so to speak. So how would you suggest husbands, infuse that into our communication to help our wives?
So let me tell you something, to be honest with you. I think that all women are different. And so with my sister, my older sister, she wanted her husband to say, hey, Jen, your stomach's it's not looking like it used to. Jen, why are you not in the gym? Jen, why are you not lifting weights? You're not challenging yourself today. It's been 2 hours, you've been up, you hadn't been for a run. I got the kids. So you get out there, exercise, do what you need to do for you. Because he knows that that's the way Jennifer receives feedback, right?
That's deep.
But if you don't know your wife, then you're walking around on eggshells, then she might just let herself go, right?
Ooh, look, fellas, pay attention to what she dropped a gem there. If you don't know your wife, you're walking around on eggshells. And this is something that transfers into other aspects of our marriages, of our relationships, of everything. Because if you don't know your wife, and let's just say something's going on with the kids, I don't know how to address that. So I just kind of let it go and we let our kids just go ham. Or if there's a financial situation that's going on and I don't know my wife, so I don't know how to communicate that there's an issue going on, we just let things go and then something hits the fan and an issue happens. So even in this regard, step one is to spend time learning and knowing your wife so that you know how to effectively communicate to her to help her.
Right. Because for me, if Keith were to say, for me, it's that I lose too much weight. So if he's like, look, you walking away and I'm not, my eyes ain't lingering. You need to go get some squats going, right? Like, I would be like, okay, I got you, right? But moms are not all like me. There are some moms that if a husband even says, you want me to take you shopping so you can get something to kind of accommodate your new shape? You know what I mean? And that would break her. And then she wouldn't try to progress because her husband has noticed that she's different. And so you have to, if that's your wife, then you might say, what are your goals for yourself after, how are you feeling about your body? And then if she tells you, how can I support you in what you need to do? Because I feel like sometimes the moms feel like they have to do everything. And so exercising is not part of their routine because they're having to take care of the kids. They're having to still do the laundry, the dishes, cook, clean, go back to work, take care of their husbands from an intimacy standpoint. And so squeezing in exercise seems overwhelming. And so then if they are then told, I'm noticing that you don't look the way that you used to look before, then that could cause them to have a breakdown. So it really you have to individually approach it based on your wife. And there are ways to say, hey, babe, I can help out if you want to go to the gym. And if she says, yes, thank you so much, that's great. And if it's a day where she's like, you know what, I'm just really tired, I can't go, then be like, okay, that's fine too. But remind her goal gently. And then don't push it. Don't be that husband that's like, well, you are gaining weight. If that's not the way that your wife responds to feedback.
Ooh, and fellas, pay attention again. Be understanding, right? But then also take time to know your spouse, know your wife, so that you can effectively communicate, so that you can literally give feedback that she responds to. And I have to be 100 here, as a guy, as a husband, as a father of two, a lot of times after the baby is born, most husbands, this is just, the ones that I've talked to, most husbands, I know that's a general question, but most husbands, we become very narrow focused on that 6-week date
Stop it.
Post delivery. I'm being honest, being straight up. Like most of the dudes, especially ones that have a baby for the first time, as soon as you have the baby and the OB says, okay, 6 weeks, we like circle the date on the calendar. And, we hope that y'all's well-being is good and we want the baby to be fine and all of that. But I ain't gonna lie. I'm circling and I'm counting down. And it's funny, as a dad, you know, it's like, how old is your baby? Oh, my baby's 3 weeks and 8 days. Like, that's 4 weeks and a day. Like, no, yeah, because I'm counting down. How old is your baby? My baby is 4 weeks and 2 days. Like, how old is your baby? My baby is 5 weeks and 6 days. Like, I mean, we're knowing that thing down to a T because we got that date circled. And, but in the midst of all of that, we have to not be so narrow focused on that 6-week date that we omit the fact that our wife might be going through something, right? And might be dealing with something. What are some indicators from a husband's perspective that we can pay attention to notice that, you know, maybe we either need to go see a professional, or maybe there's something going on with my spouse or with my wife, you know, postpartum?
Right. So this is so good. First of all, for those of you who don't know, at 6 weeks, a woman is told that she is okay to return to activity. So that means
sex
activity to a man, right? Yes.
Sex.
So
look, it's time to close that door. Sex. That's what we're talking about. But anyway, go back.
Right. So here's the funny thing. A lot of moms that I talk to. So let's talk about pregnancy. During pregnancy, estrogen levels are high for most women. Mm-hmm. And so their sex drive is pretty good, right?
That second trimester is good.
Right? And then guys, they love it because they're not worrying about getting you pregnant. You're already pregnant. And so you can have all the sex you want. But then as a mom gets bigger, sometimes she's not wanting to have sex as much. So I try to think about from a woman's perspective, your husband, I'll say the longest that I heard, and this is, okay, I have to say this. Sometimes when I'm sitting with women, let's say it's a group of women, right? And I'll ask the question, on average, how many times do you have sex with your husband in a year, right? So we'll just go with a year, because sometimes if we go with a month or a week, we might not get them, that high numbers, right? And so I'll watch moms, and inevitably I'll have one just raise her hand and be like, if it's like 1 out of 365, could I just put 0? I'm like, that averages to 0. Yes, that's 0 days in a year, right? Unacceptable. It's unacceptable. But I think that the problem is on both ends. Okay. So if a woman starts feeling like, I don't want to have sex around the last trimester, so now that's 3 months without sex, and then the doctor says, okay, for 6 weeks you can't have sex, then that's an additional 6 weeks without sex. And then if you're breastfeeding and your estrogen, so after you have the baby, I talked about estrogen during pregnancy. That's a sex hormone. And so that's what helps us get our libido up. We want to, in the mood. After you deliver the baby, if you're breastfeeding, then that number, it will plummet, right? And so now you don't have that estrogen. And so now you're dry vaginally sometimes. And so inserting a penis into a dry vagina doesn't feel good. I don't know if it feels good for you guys, but it doesn't feel good to us. Okay.
Man, and so look, after 6 weeks, we like, I don't care. Look.
You don't care, but we care. Right? So if you know the estrogen is down, then let's talk about some foreplay, right? So why can't you do something before the insertion? Okay. And so I think guys should start thinking about that. Because when I hear women saying, you know what, I don't have time for sex. You know what that means? That either the sex wasn't good, sex isn't good now, because who doesn't have time for a good orgasm? Okay. Right? And so women have to be real about why they're not having sex. It's not because you don't have time. You're on Facebook for an hour or 30 minutes scrolling. If the average is true that most guys only last 4 minutes, I mean, you got plenty of time, right? But the problem is that it normally takes at least 11 minutes for a woman to have an orgasm. So if a guy lasts 4, a woman needs 11, then maybe she's not doing it because she doesn't want to. It's not fun, right? The other thing is that a lot of guys want to wait till the end of the day. What if we want to have sex first thing in the morning, or we want to have sex when the baby goes down for a nap, or let's take him to daycare, you guys take a day off of work, and then we have a whole day of an experience, right? As opposed to, let's have a quickie before I go to work. No, let's have an experience and you don't go to work today, because I understand that you want to protect and you want to provide, but you also need to be my pleasure releaser, right? And so
hold on now, look, I got to come back on the guy side of things.
Okay.
Look, if y'all were throwing that stuff out, we like, hold up, look, I take off all week. Oh,
is that right?
Like, look, whoa, like the kids need to go next door to the neighbors for a little bit. Hold on, I'll walk them over there myself. If
Yeah, right? Y'all got to be proactive now, but you got to make it worth our while because we got a lot of stuff to do,
yeah,
right?
fellas,
So,
whoa, fellas, again, brothers learning from sisters. We're having a real conversation here. We're married folks, and we talking married people stuff. And fellas, it got to be worth their while because they got things to do. And look, and it's funny because a lot of times we talk about that in the context of not being married. We're talking about this in the under the confines of marriage, right? I
right.
mean, because sex is a big part of marriage. I mean, that's something that we're needing, that you all are needing, but we need to make sure that it's worth your while. We need to make sure that we're accommodating for, being mindful of, like you mentioned, like estrogen levels not being as high, postpartum due to breastfeeding and things of that sort. And so if the desire is not there, we need to be understanding of that. But then on the flip side, to your point, women have to also be open and considerate of the other part that, man, your boy been holding out for weeks.
Months,
How can we figure
years.
out a workaround here?
No, because for the moms, and I respect moms as long as they want to breastfeed or whatever, but for the ones who breastfeed all the way to the next baby, that's a long time without your husband having access to you, right? And then that's a long time of your estrogen levels being depleted. So then you breastfeed, then you get pregnant again, then you have the baby, then you breastfeed again. It's like you lose, when you haven't done something for a long time, it's easy to just not do it,
Yeah. The
right?
habits go. It's like creating a habit.
It is creating a habit.
And I'll tell you what's interesting about that, just creating the habit of intimacy. And intimacy is not just sex. I mean, we're talking about sex right now, but intimacy is really, it starts with yourself, right? Because I interviewed a guy on Black Fathers Now, and he talked about intimacy, and he reframed it. He said, into me see. Right? He said, into me see before intimacy, because then when you know yourself, again, rediscovering your music, then when you step into intimacy, it's like, I know my expectations, I know what I'm capable of. And if both parties do that, then we're here to serve each other. And then it's not this, we're not like rams butting horns, like, fine, I'll go along with it, or fine here, it's not contentious. It's actually something that brings you closer together.
Absolutely. And I was thinking, I can't hear you, song. There. I was thinking about the intimacy thing. I'm so happy that you said that because I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this lady was talking about how she was the most horny after she had her baby. So for a lot of women where their estrogen goes down and they may not be feeling it so much, she really was. And for her doctor to tell her, her OBGYN to tell her, look, you can't do that for 6 weeks. She was like, I shouldn't be told what I can and can't do with my own body. She didn't really understand that, you don't want to introduce infection or you'd want to allow those tissues to heal and stuff like that. But what she understood was someone telling me that I can't do something that I want to do. And I started thinking, why do we always think about penetration when it comes to sex? That's the problem. So the guys are going without, right? Because there's so many other things that you can do besides penetration in the bedroom, right? And so why not delve into those things even before you have the baby? Then you can start seeing what you like, what you don't like, and understanding that most women do not have an orgasm based on penetration. It's clitoral stimulation. And so if a guy can stimulate your clit during the first 6 weeks and you get those orgasms going, guess what? Orgasms strengthen the pelvic floor muscles. And so now you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Come on, somebody.
Look, fellas, see, now we can help them rediscover their music.
Yes.
We can keep our drum beat going too. You know what I'm saying? So we got some real music with some rhythm popping and some doggone Simba and some, merengue and some samba and, oh Lord, come on now. We all of us are rediscovering music now. I'm digging that.
Right? Let your wife explore your body and see. I mean, I feel like we lose that as we get further in our marriage, maybe. And when kids come, then it may make it less convenient, but it's still so important.
Convenience versus importance.
Right. So let's just make it happen. If both decide they're gonna make it happen, and both people are looking to please the other person, because why, as a woman, would we feel like, oh, we want to nurture our babies, but we don't want to nurture our husbands? That's not the case.
Ooh, that's deep. That's
we
deep.
want to take care of both. But we also want to, but you would, I mean, a woman would argue that it is naturally, and it's an inherent sense of gratification to be able to take care of a baby because the baby can't take care of themselves, right?
Mm,
Whereas with the guy, we want to feel like the guy is taking care of us as
mm,
we take care of them, right? And so he's an adult. Let
mm.
him figure out what pleases me too, or try to explore what pleases me so that we can get to, can get that, making more babies.
Make it, there it is. And it goes back to, I think, what we talked about earlier, effective communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about communicating effectively. Like you mentioned with Rediscover Your M.U.S.I.C, it's, women having a space where they can effectively communicate their needs, or in various spaces, them not having the means to effectively communicate because maybe they don't appear to see a solution provider available, right?
Right.
But again, communication, even from the guy's perspective with our wives, the concept of effective communication. How do we communicate effectively? Because if we do so, then literally we don't have to rediscover our music because we never lose our music.
Amen. Amen to that, right? It's all about prevention. And it's funny because when you talk about postpartum, I used to be all about postpartum. Let me just get to them after they have their babies. But now I came up with pregnancy principles because I thought if moms knew what I know while they're pregnant, then they wouldn't need me as afterwards, right? And so now I start intervening during pregnancy. The mom that I saw Tuesday, she was 34 weeks pregnant. And so I can start teaching her, massage your vaginal opening. Because you think about the vagina, it's used to receiving things, and women are not taught how to receive things, but it's used to receiving a tampon and a penis, right? Or a vibrator, whatever women decide to put up there. But it's not used to pushing anything out. And so if we can prepare the vagina, then you can decrease the chance that you're going to tear it during delivery. And so now at 34 weeks, I'm teaching moms how to stretch that tissue so that when that baby's head crowns, it's not that feeling of, oh my God, I've never felt this before. You've prepared your vagina, so then you're not having to push through that process and tear. Because I found out something very interesting. About 100 years ago, women were put to sleep when they were giving birth. So they were completely under anesthesia, but not for C-section purposes, just to allow the baby to come out. So the mom is asleep, and then when the baby's born, the mom is woken up, right? Didn't tear at all. No tears in her vagina. Now that doctors try to intervene on the process, as soon as they look down there and they're like, oh, you're 9 centimeters, you're 10 centimeters, go ahead and start pushing. So then all this adrenaline starts going. Mom is trying to rush the baby out of the body. We've never been taught how to push anything out of our vagina. So if you have someone to help you beforehand, that's great. Husband wants to advocate, hire a physical therapist for at least one session before your wife has a baby. That'll stop her from tearing, or at least minimize the chances that she can tear, and put her in control of when the baby comes out. Because if all the women were still put to sleep, maybe there wouldn't be so many tears. But now over 80% of women tear during delivery. Okay. And so can you imagine? So you're thinking, the guys are thinking, oh, let's get back to intimacy. The woman is thinking, I just ripped from the inside. I don't want anything in there right now, right? And at 6 weeks, I don't know what it's going to be like down there, right? Because there's that question, and you still feel weak. Even though doctors say you can return to activity, meaning return to work, return to taking care of your family, return to doing everything that you were doing before. Some moms think it means return to P90X and CrossFit. It means different things for different moms. And by 6 weeks, your body is not completely healed. I don't know where that number came from. It seems very arbitrary, but even if the arbitrary number were 12 weeks, then at least a mom would have had 3 months to try to get back to how she was. Because if for the first 6 weeks, everyone's like, relax, relax, relax. And even husbands do that sometimes. The over helpful husbands, they'll set up a refrigerator, a rocking chair, everything in one room and be like, hey, I'll bring the baby to you. Oh, the baby can sleep in here. Oh, let me bring you your food. That's not healthy. That's just as unhealthy as a mom who gets up 2 weeks out after having a baby and deciding to go run a marathon, because that happens, right? And so moms need to know that there is a balance. That balance is within though. And so we need to have a guide through pregnancy, through the delivery, which is why another thing I think husbands should do is, or partners should do, is to hire a midwife or a doula, so that they attend the birth. I read the most recent statistic was that only 1% of childbirths are attended by midwives and doulas.
Wow.
Why is that? When we can help. The midwife who delivered my baby, when I heard this story, I said, oh my God put us together for a reason. She was in the hospital. She was helping deliver a baby, and she overheard a conversation. A doctor said, look, the baby's not here in 10, 20 minutes. We're going to have to get her out. It's just unsafe for the baby to stay in there. That's what he said. So she overheard it and she knocked on the door and she said, excuse me, would you mind if I helped you? And he was like, yeah. She was like, I'm a midwife. I can try to help get the baby out. 10 minutes later, the baby was vaginally delivered. That was a C-section avoided. That was a surgical procedure avoided. That mom, and after that, of course, that doctor, the guy whose wife it was, he was a doctor, he had her attend the next 3 births.
Wow.
Because he realized the power of having someone who's not going to jump to medical intervention just because things don't look perfect, right?
That's deep.
Our bodies were created to do this. So don't tell me my hips are too small. Don't tell me that it's been too long that the baby's been inside. Don't tell me that now you're at 40 weeks, we should go ahead and induce. No, because a lot of induced labors turn into C-sections. Let my body do what it was created to do. So husband, partner, father, advocate. She'll be happier about doing the things that you want to do if her body is not ripped during the delivery process. Hire a midwife, hire a doula.
Ooh, hire a midwife, hire a doula. Yes. Balance is within, and our bodies are created to do this. Fellas, think about this. And we're thinking about this through the context of your wife, of your spouse, of your partner. Hire a doula, hire a midwife. Balance is within, and their bodies were created to do this. And so if you're told otherwise, take a step back and pause. You might need another opinion, because this is something that's so interesting, because again, we've had our kids, ours are 9 and 7, and unless the Lord got other plans, we're done. Right. And, but the thing is, just knowing this, I think this is such an empowering conversation for couples who are currently pregnant, thinking about getting pregnant, who maybe are, have a newborn at the house or whatnot, and are dealing with, some of the postpartum scenarios that are out there. This is such valuable information. And truthfully, I'm gonna be honest with you, dudes don't have this conversation. We don't sit around and talk about this. Literally, if it's guys sitting around talking, we're talking about that 6-week date, right? I'm serious. We don't talk about this. And so that your brothers learning from sisters, this is such a powerful conversational platform, because we're now having conversations that we otherwise would not have. We otherwise would say, hey, you need to go talk to your mama, or you need to go talk to your mother, or talk to my mama, talk to your mother-in-law, or whatever. But now you're equipping us to not be experts, but to at least spawn a conversation which could potentially lead to positive outcomes. So thank you for that.
Oh my goodness, you're welcome. And let me tell you something. This second birth was so different than the first one. And Keith, when I tell you, his belief in me and my ability to make the right decisions made all the difference in the world. Ooh. It did because, and of course I'm a crier. So, so if I cry,
it's okay. It's okay.
Right before I had Victor, everything was perfect. We went out to eat Japanese, and we got back home at 11 o'clock. I felt contractions, but he was already asleep. I didn't want to wake him up, but I felt I think the baby's coming. Maybe around 2, I said, let me go ahead and wake him, because it's not stopping. So I woke him up, realized I didn't have any mandarin oranges, and we didn't have the hose we needed for the birth. So we got up, went to Target, bought that stuff, came back. It was wonderful. By 6 o'clock, Victor was already here. We called the doula. The midwife, she came to the house around 4 in the morning. And then around 5, the pool was already up, and I got in around 5:30. Victor came, no complications. It was great. But Krista Lily, my last visit, she didn't think I was going to make it to the last visit because Victor came so early, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing about due dates. Mm-hmm. They're an estimate, mm-hmm. right? And so don't go based off of what the calendar says. Go based off of how the mom is progressing. That's just something that I think moms should really consider, is that if someone tells you to induce, ask them, is my baby okay? Am I okay? Let's just wait. God didn't put the baby in there and take care of it for 9 months for it to get stuck. It'll come. Just don't rush the process, right? But anyway, my blood pressure was high. And so she said, it seems like you might be dealing with some preeclampsia, which means that I could have a seizure during childbirth if my blood pressure gets too high. That's basically the issue. Mm-hmm. So you have swelling, you have protein in your urine, and your blood pressure goes up. And so, but I said, well, what are my options? And she was like, you go to the hospital. I cried on that option. So we nixed that one. Mm-hmm. And she said, or I can induce. I can come to your house. We could get this baby out, because if you go to the hospital, they'll say that the cure for preeclampsia, and that's what all the research says, is to just have a baby, right? And so I said, come to the house. And so Keith was like, so we're having the baby tomorrow. I was like, we're having the baby tomorrow. I will feel good if the baby is born at home, just like Victor was. I don't have to go to the hospital during COVID, so I don't have to decide between having the midwife there and having you there, having Victor with my mom. The whole pregnancy, I was excited about Victor being able to be there to welcome his sister into the world. Now, at the very end of my pregnancy, all of this stuff is being told to me that could seemingly be out of a mom's control, because if you don't think for yourself, then if the midwife said, hey, let's just go to the hospital, then you'd be like, okay, let's go to the hospital. Once you get to the hospital, your blood pressure's high because nothing's the way that you wanted it to be. Then they're like, oh, your blood pressure's too high. Let's take the baby. Now you're in an emergency C-section situation. I'm not going to be there because I've seen it happen over and over and over again. So yes, we're having the baby tomorrow. Keith was like, good, fine. Midwife comes over, she induces. And I mean, I had Crystal Lily, we started at 12:30 and Crystal Lily was here by 5:15. Wow. Now, it would not have happened that way if I went to, I promise you, because she had to take my blood pressure every 15 minutes. It's a lot of work, right? To do it and make it so that it's natural, but you're still safe. And I get that. But as the healthcare provider, I know I can breathe my way through high blood pressure and make it come. When it was at its highest, I got into the bathtub, blood pressure went down. I went from 6 centimeters to 10 centimeters in 40 minutes from getting in the bathtub. If I was at the hospital and my blood pressure was running as high as it was in the hospital, here, they would have taken the baby. And what is a mom going to say? If they say, oh, your baby's in distress, the mom's going to say, okay, take the baby. That's not always the end of the story. The baby is in distress. What does that mean? What does that mean for the baby? How long do I have before the baby can get here? When you look at research and it talks about how the fetal heart rate monitor, false positives are there 50% of the time. I talked to a friend, she went to school to be an OB, and she said, here's the thing, Katherine, if the fetal heart rate monitor says the baby's in distress and you don't deliver because you realize it could be positioning of the baby, it could be positioning of the mom, it could be a bunch of different factors, but you don't deliver, you have no legal leg to stand on. But if you go ahead and say, you know what, let's get the baby out and you have a safe delivery, then you're safe. And so the medical profession is more about protecting self and protecting baby than they are about listening to what a mom really wants. And so that's all, right? And so the husband has to be there to say, this was not in my wife's birth plan. Is there any way that we could do something different? Can we try something different? Research shows that, turning the baby is possible. So when the babies are breech and everyone's like, baby's in a bad position, you're gonna have a C-section. Husband can say, why don't we hire someone, see if they can flip the baby and get the baby in the head down position before it's too late. There's no harm in that, right? But if the medical professionals try to jump in and make the decision, then everybody feels like they're helpless. And so Keith helped me to feel like I could do this. I mean, because after the delivery, everything didn't settle down like it was supposed to. My blood pressure was up to almost 200 over 110, 120. I've never seen that, right? Ever in my body. I've seen it in the hospital and it's not a good look, but I was able to breathe. I was in and out of the med stops to make sure that my blood pressure was okay. I was going to the doctor's visits every week. Keith did not go into work and think about going into work. He thought about, how can I keep the babies close to Katherine so she can breastfeed like she wants to? Because sometimes when you're separated from your baby for hours, the husband's first thing is, okay, let's give the baby formula. Once you give the baby formula, then I'm not able to breastfeed, right? Because she's not feeding as much. So my supply is not staying high. And that's something that's very important to me. And he knew that, but he had to make the decision. Am I gonna go to work? Or am I going to stay here so that every time Katherine has to go to the med stop, every time she has to go to a doctor's appointment, that I'll be there for her so that our babies can be with her? Because that's what the most important thing was to me. And I told him, the most important thing is I'm not separated from Victor. I'm not separated from Crystal Lily. He made that happen. Okay. First 6 weeks, I was like, go to work, baby. You can go in for a couple of days. I got the babies, It's like me now trying to repay what he did for me, because what was important to me was important to him. It was the first priority to him. And for him, working is important. Providing is important. But he decided, let me put that on the back burner. I have days that I can take off, right?
Mm.
Leave that I've accumulated that I'm not having to take now because of the coronavirus. That's what I think a husband's role is. Protect your wife and make sure that the things that she has said is important to her, they come to pass even when she's scared, even when the numbers don't look right. Because now I took my blood pressure this morning. It was 106 over 64, right? It took time, but it took teamwork. It's
Mm.
friends praying for us, people like you. We
Mm.
confided in you. This is going on. Please pray for us. Victor's other sets of godparents, they did the same thing. And I thought, what would we do without our prayer warriors? What would we have done without God's provision? But it takes me sticking by what I said I wanted, because now I'm still breastfeeding. My babies are still with me. We've not skipped a beat, thanks to this household, thanks to everybody's prayers, and thanks to my knowledge of the body and how it works. And so that's what I want to give to moms, that knowledge that they don't have. And so if they're not a healthcare provider, their husband's not a healthcare provider, then have one with you during those doctor's appointments so that someone who knows you can help you make decisions, informed decisions. Because my best friend, both of my best friends, one is a pharmacist, one is an MD. I did not shout them out at the beginning. I cannot believe I didn't, but every conversation, if the doctor mentioned blood pressure medicine, I was calling my friend saying, hey, is this a good blood pressure medication for Black women? Or is it just, when you were talking about norms, or is it just good for who they've included in the research? Because when you read research sometimes, I just read an article, there were 12,500 white women and 2,400 Black women. That is not a representation of the people who are going to take advantage of this blood pressure medication, right? Wow, that really works well for white women. So my pharmacist friend was like, don't do that one. This is the one that you should do. My MD friend was like, oh, your kidney levels are like that. Look at your race. Look at your body weight. The norms are higher than what your body would need to do because of how you kept your body in shape over these years. You've got to have people in your corner who know the profession and who know what's normal for you versus what's normal for everybody else. And then you can move forward with an informed decision and an informed consent, because doctors have you all the time fill out that informed consent, right? You've had informed consent. It's not informed if you don't have all of the information. But you're signing it away, right? You're signing away your consent without having all of your questions answered. And that's the tragedy in it all, right?
You like, first off, that story is just a testament to teamwork. You know, teamwork makes the dream work. And as we go back and I think about just the concept of rediscovering your music, and I think about the concept of music, right?
Yeah.
Even when there's a solo artist singing, right? There's always some background singers. There's always a band in the corner, right? Or sometimes there's a band on the stage, or there's a duo. But when it comes to music, rarely is music a solo thing. And even if music's being played solo from an acoustic perspective, you're playing it for somebody else. So music always involves more than one person. And so when you talked about rediscovering your music, and that's why I'm so thankful for you really being open and sharing your journey and your story here. It's about this team. It's about the band. It's about everybody involved in making this music play. Because whether you're an acoustic performer by yourself on stage, you're still performing for other people. And so there's so many different individuals involved, and it takes all of us. It takes a village. You know, the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, but every strong and successful individual, couple, family also has a village around them. And your story is such an exemplary example of that. And I appreciate you for sharing that. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, you're welcome. And you know what's funny? Growing up, I saw my mom and dad, and this is the thing that I remember the most about their relationship. My mom's mom got sick toward the end of her life, and she's not from here. She's from Panama. And as soon as she found out she was sick, my mom was like, we got to bring her home. My dad was like, absolutely, we're going to make it happen. They turned the garage into an extra room because the hospital bed needed to get into the house. And we have 2 stories. So they changed that room up. I mean, all of this was done in like 30 days now. Hospital bed comes in. My mom flies to Panama, brings her mom back. My mom worked days. My dad worked nights. So that my grandmother always had 24-hour care, because what was not going to happen? Well, she wasn't going to go to a nursing home, right? And so we were helping make meals, get her dressed, change her. It was family coming together to say, grandma's going to be taken care of, right? So I watched my mom do that. I watched my mom when I say she was never separated from us, the only time was when she went to go get her mom from Panama and bring her back. Only time. And my dad allowed that to happen, right? Because he worked. So she was able to stay home with us. And then the times that she didn't want to, not didn't want to stay home with us, but when we got into school and stuff and she could work, then she did. But that option was always there, that the understanding was always there that my kids come first, right? And so that teamwork, I saw it growing up. And so it's easy for me to say, but what I will say is it's also hard for me to think about asking for help outside of the family unit. And so you have people who are like, I want to help, I want to help, I want to help. And so unless you say, yes, help me, then you see moms falling into postpartum depression. Because one thing that you asked was, what signs should you be looking for? When you see your wife and she's just not herself, right? Or she has a detached feeling from the baby, or you notice that she's crying all the time, or what people call the post-baby blues don't go away. She's self-depreciating. I had a mom who, no matter what you said to her, she did not believe you. You're beautiful. No, I'm not. I'm ugly. You really bounce back after you're pregnant. No, I don't even feel good being in a bathing suit anymore, walking around the house naked anymore. I just feel fat. I feel ugly. It was just never a good word said about herself. I helped her. I asked her husband to help her find help. And so instead of her coming to me for my Rediscover Your M.U.S.I.C program, I was like, take her to someone so she can talk to them and get some counseling. Because I promise you, once she goes through that counseling session and her mental health is taken care of, she'll be a better wife. She'll be a better mother. She'll be better to herself. She didn't even need me anymore. She got back in shape by herself. She had the help that she needed. So for me, it's not all about everybody come to me. It's let me address the issues that I can help you with and then send you to the person that you need. Because if you think about a woman as a puzzle, we have so many pieces that need addressing that as a physical therapist, it would be very ignorant of me to think that I have all the answers. Right? And so I try to help moms get the help that they need. And it's just, if we do that as a healthcare provider and spouse and family, then the moms will be better taken care of from a holistic standpoint.
That's beautiful.
I told y'all this was going to be a dope conversation. Make sure to visit Operation M.I.S.T.org, Operation M.I.S.T, M-I-S-T.org, to get more information on Dr. Katherine Sylvester as well as her mission. Y'all be blessed, well, and wise. Peace.
I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and follow Coach Mike D everywhere on social media. Y'all be blessed, well, and wise.